Hello, everybody! Welcome to another episode of GameSpot Gameplay. It is GameSpot's podcast, and I'm your host, Kevin VanOrd. And welcome to episode 61. Welcome to all of the people in this room, and somebody... We even have a special guest, but before I get there, let me introduce all the people in the room first. Well, let's start across from me, because Justin Haywald is here. Justin!
Hi, I'm Justin Haywald.
This is your first...
appearance on your podcast?
Yeah, very excited.
I make regular appearances on the Geekbox podcast. I don't know if any of your listeners listen to that.
I don't know. Does anybody... I'm watching the Twitch chat. Does anybody watch it? You can let me know.
The Geekbox is another podcast that I also do.
What do you know? Over next to you, sort of, is Tom McShay.
I have to stop playing Danganronpa, so I hope that this podcast is good.
One of the hundreds of great Vita games.
I said there are at least 100 great Vita games, but Justin disagrees about what's a Vita game. And what is not?
Well, are you talking about games that are playable on a Vita?
Yeah,
games
you can buy on the
that
Vita.
were made for the Vita.
Yes,
there's a big difference between those two.
He classifies only the latter, and I classify everything I can play on that system.
Okay.
So everything on the PlayStation Network, everything on PlayStation 1 that's available are all Vita games.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a sensible approach. Carolyn Pettit.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here. Maybe just quickly, just to address for viewers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
That
Go for it.
You know how in a lot of video games there are very elaborate character customization tools, and real life is kind of lacking in that regard. But I did take advantage of the character customization tools that life has to offer for myself. So I was away for a while. And now I'm back. But anyway, yeah, I was in Thailand for a while, and I'm very happy to be back here.
Does makeup count as a character customization tool?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But it's, I think if I were reviewing life as a game, I might give the character customization a bad entry. It's not as robust as
it's always set on randomize.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Right? So...
Well, not quite. It's more like The Sims.
I mean, there are
has that
aspects
whole
of it that you
DNA
can...
aspect,
Sure.
Where it's supposed to sort of look like the two.
I didn't get to choose my parents, though.
But, well, that's kind
I
of
would have
true.
picked like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. And
Right.
Why would you choose those people? Have you seen Brad Pitt lately? He looks like a dirty,
I would
oily
pick Patrick
biker.
Stewart.
Speaking of dirty, oily bikers...
Hey, yeah, speaking of dirty, oily bikers, zing! Jim Sterling from The Escapist is on the line with us, I hope.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Jim Sterling.
You sound like you're in a well. Should we get help?
No, I'm in the garage with my dirty, oily bike.
Oh, well, that's understandable.
No, I'm just in an echoey room. Could put a blanket over my head. I might die. I'm in the American South. I need all the air I can get. But I could do that for you. That's what you want. Is this a video podcast or not?
No, it's
Because I'm
okay.
seeing you people on a video.
Wait.
It is a video podcast.
It is, but you can see us, but they can't see you. We can't see you.
Right, okay.
Which is as it should
Well,
be.
I think Jim...
click a video icon, but unlike Carolyn, I have not customized my character at all today, so I've got shit hair. Mm-hmm. And I would have to deal with that.
That's a difficult thing for a person to have to deal with.
I'm usually used to your sweet, slick-backed look. So are you saying that's not what you have today?
No, I look like someone who would bother people in the street today.
Okay. As opposed to the other days. Benito, is there a way to turn him up a little bit? Yeah, we can maybe turn Jim up a little bit, just because he's a little soft.
Wow, that's
well,
insulting.
I don't mean that.
What
I don't
an
mean
ass.
soft in that way. His voice sounds a little low, but he's also adorably fluffy, so that's okay.
Pretty much every offensive permutation you could have from soft is technically true. So no offense taken.
Yeah, but we're a sophisticated podcast, so we're not going to go there, right? So, Jim, I am going to start with you. So we're going to start with round one, which is
I
Carol's
love
favorite.
it when we start with round one. I mean, it's not that it's my favorite, it's that I love it when we start with round one.
Right. It's never the same if I start
It just
with
makes
a
me
different
feel
round.
like all is right with the world.
Instead of round two.
Yeah.
That's true. So this is Current Buzz, and Jim, I'm going to start with you because I know that you have feelings about this particular matter, at least so I've heard. And, at GameSpot, we don't really cover much in the way of mobile games. But I'd like to... Do you mind if I quote you something that you wrote about a particular game?
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay, because I like this quote. It is, a cynically motivated skeleton of a non-game, a scam that will take your cash and offer nothing in return, a perversion of a respected series, twisted by some of the most soulless, selfish, and nauseating human beings to ever blight the game industry. And those are strong words.
That was my award for The Last of Us, yes.
Oh god.
So, Last of Us cleaning up many awards last night, including Jim Sterling's nauseating human being to ever blight the game industry award. Actually, you're talking about a different game. Why don't you enlighten us?
Yeah, you said you're a sophisticated podcast. What's your policy on swearing?
Well, by all means, we encourage it because that we are sophisticated.
Right, let's talk about the fucking shitehawks at Mythic Entertainment.
Okay.
To be honest, I've talked so much about it this week. The bile reserves are running a bit low.
I understand.
What game is this?
Let's see. Let me just have a look
Just in
at
case
my,
people aren't
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah, we should tell people what game we're talking about.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, sorry. We're talking about Dungeon Keeper, most popularly known now as Dungeon Keeper Mobile.
But that's the Bullfrog Classic. What could be wrong with Dungeon Keeper?
I know. Everyone was excited for the reboot. It is... I don't like to use the word free-to-play because you don't play it. This is something I coined this past week called free-to-wait. It was popularized by Farmville, and EA, being EA, jumped on this with both feet, grabbed it with both hands, and just bit in and dug in and embodied everything bad about it, and just took it to its grossest logical endpoint. This is a game, in fact, if you just bear with me 1 second, I will play it for you live.
Oh no.
I can't wait. This always goes well. While you do that, maybe I should find some other choice quotes from Jim's review on The Escapist. How about this one? One of the worst examples of a cancer that is eroding the market and has already destroyed the credibility of the once promising mobile game sector.
So one thing that's interesting about this game too is that at least I believe it's the Android version, where you know how apps will ask you to rate them periodically. So when this game asks you if you want to rate it, it says, would you give this game 1 to 4 stars or would you give it 5 stars? If you click 5 stars, it routes you to the store to rate it. If you click 1 to 4 stars, it routes you to an email form to send them feedback rather than to the store where you would publicly review the game. So it's as if it seems like a kind of shady way of trying to ensure that the ratings on the store are, of the 5-star variety.
Can seriously, can we all agree as a group that this is pretty pathetic? Regardless of whether you feel it's the norm.
Well,
or
I would
whether...
just like to emphasize that point. Just mention I'm done playing for the day now.
Okay.
While you were
Okay,
talking.
all right.
I done my clicking on 2 blocks, and I'll check in again tomorrow to click on 2 more.
So a spokesperson said, well, the reason it's set up that way, the rating thing that I was talking about, the reason it's set up that way is because we want feedback from those players who might feel like the game is not as good as it could be.
You don't want feedback. It's a trick. Oh,
No,
am I
they do
doing
need-
something? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Apparently, I was
You're
playing
absently.
I was absentmindedly playing with Caro's camera.
That
and
is
didn't even
my
realize
camera.
it.
You do not
So
touch.
sorry.
You do not touch my camera,
Sorry.
Kevin VanOrd. Keep your hands off my.
I'm not used to sitting in this seat. I feel really kind of weird not being at the control panel and stuff.
I feel like the developers they do read your feedback. They do listen to what you guys have to say. Like when you submit that kind of feedback, it's not the fact that if you put 5 stars, then it takes you over to the App Store. That's something I never click on anyway. When it says, do you want to rate this? My answer is usually no. I don't want to rate this because I don't care enough to,
Yeah,
whether I like it or not.
It's
Right.
putting up a roadblock. If you don't think it deserves 5 stars, then there's a roadblock. There's one more thing that you have to jump, one more hoop to jump through that's probably going to keep you from offering what you think because it's too much work.
Yeah.
It's an insidious thing. It's everything about the game is insidious. But it is just this subtle way of just discouraging you, just dissuading you. Like when you get a form from Microsoft after they fixed the Xbox 360 that said, how would you rate this? our service on a scale of 1 to 10. And when I said 7, they said why, and kept me on the phone for ages until I gave them 10s for everything, because I just wanted to go and eat a sandwich. And it's that kind of nonsense. There's a download in progress for this at the moment on my phone.
Well, that's good.
Downloading update 2 of 6. What are they updating? There's nothing in there. There's no game in here.
Okay,
So this actually ties in because EA just updated Plants vs. Zombies 2 today. And they added like a new...
Oh, that reminds me.
So that's
Sorry.
another mobile game. But they added like new free-to-play roadblocks, basically, where they take away your lawnmowers.
Yeah,
unless
while
you
I've
pay
got
money.
my phone, I just need to uninstall that.
So like this is... yeah, it's a very good idea to install it. But I guess this is what EA's business plan is for mobile games, is just like, we're going to try to get money from all the whales and try to make as many whales as we can.
But that does make more money. I mean, that's the reason that they do it, and it's
Well, of
unfair.
course.
Like, none of us are going to like that. I don't like Farmville at all. But that doesn't make Farmville and Farmville 2 not incredibly successful
But at the
games for a
same
reason.
time, Zynga has crashed so far that they hired Don Mietrich to run them. Like
Because they tried overextending themselves.
Well, here's the thing. The trouble with the it makes money now argument is that only works in the short term. And this is an industry that is unfortunately focused only on short-term goals with no thought for the long term.
I disagree
And this is why
completely.
companies go under. This is why bankruptcies and layoffs happen.
No, that kind of market makes it make money in the long term. Like, the fact is that when you put it out for a certain set price, then you have the $60, the AAA kind of idea that we have, where you make money for a very short amount of time, and then if it's not discounted, it stops making money. And this kind of mindset, this kind of making a freemium model actually lets them make money for a really long time, and it lets them extend that out. I mean, it's not a popular way for us to play it. It's not what we want to do. But for a subsect of players, that makes the game last forever. Zynga crashed because they overextended. They tried to make that fit into every kind of category of game. But Farmville 2 never stopped being Farmville, and then Farmville 2, which followed the exact same pattern and just improved it slightly, never stopped being popular. And that long tail on the game just lasts.
That's what they said about the Guitar Hero games until they released 10 in a single year.
Yeah,
the thing is right now, absolutely, this stuff's making money. And in the minds of executives, it's just going to keep making money forever until the bubble bursts. Right now, this whole free-to-play mobile stuff is in a bubble. But bubbles always burst, and they're going to burst. The burst is going to be even harder if they aggressively exploit it, which is what Electronic Arts and a number of other companies are doing right now. This is not what you do to contribute to a healthy industry. It's not...
Well, it can only grow so large. It can only get so big. Like, of course, you can't expand it infinitely. But I think there's still room. Like, if Zynga wanted to stay like a certain size of company, or if EA did not want to expand, try to keep expanding, and of course they're going to push the boundaries of how far can we take this? How many games can we make fit into this model? But there's always going to be a set number. It's like, this is going to be profitable, and we can keep doing this, and that will make them money.
You know what is sustainable? Charging money up front, which has worked for
that's sustainable
40 years. Like,
it's not as profitable. Like, the problem is that market research, which I worked in before this, it holds up that if you have a game, let's say that putting the numbers really small, you have a game you're going to put out for 100 people, and the game is $2 or $5. As soon as you start increasing the price, fewer people are going to pay for it. It's like when you say, let's say that it's $2 and 10 people will pay for it, so you made $20 for this game. Versus if it's free to play, 99 of those people will play it. And if only one person among that is going to be a whale, is going to say like, well, I like this so much, or I'm just so kind of crazy and addicted that I'm going to pay the $100, and then you have 5 other people who pay $1 over several months, like, that's automatically making you more money. And the sad thing is that even though we hate it, the 98% of us who are not going to pay any money at all, even though we hate that, they're still making more money from that one person who's like, this is okay.
For now. But they are appealing to a market who, by their very nature, because they're into a free-to-play game like that, have unreliable attention spans. And that's not a criticism on them. That's
it's a criticism on them.
How we
can insult them.
I'm not even insulting them. I really do mean that their loyalty to you as a company cannot be counted on. And as soon as some new exciting model comes along, they're going to jump to it and leave you in the lurch.
Well, of course, or else we would still be making arcade games. We have, like, companies have to keep changing and trying to keep doing things that are going to make them money, or else there's no reason to keep doing it.
I think
one of the other problems is, I mean, if you go on the Android market right now, I'm a big follower of the Android market. I've seen its decline into this. Is everything now in the free area is this exact same game, is this free-to-wait thing, whether it's Simpsons Tapped Out, Dungeon Keeper, Jurassic Park Builder, or Farmville, of course. They're all that kind of game. And if we learned anything from other kind of bubbles like this, there's only room for a few at the top. There is, who was it? The Time Splitters guy who said, like, very few first-person shooters make money. But because Call of Duty made money, everybody did first-person shooters for a while, because they thought if we clone that type of game, we will clone their profits, which doesn't work because money is not an infinite resource, and nor is an audience. So we're just seeing more and more of these games coming onto the market, flooding the place, trying to play to just an audience that isn't growing with them, and that's how the market falls apart.
Well, yeah, you're always going to have these imitators who really don't care about games at all. And to be fair,
like EA,
there
in
are
this
people
case.
at EA. There are people at EA who are only in it to make money, but there are people at EA who are making games and who want to make really good games. And it isn't necessarily their choice on how it's monetized, but they still want to make a fun experience. Just like they, so I don't know if you guys watched any of the talks at DICE. There were some great speeches from Eugene Jarvis, who talked about the early, and Mark Cerny talking about the early arcade days when, they have to make an experience that you're going to keep pumping quarters into, and it can't last more than like 2 minutes for the average player. And it doesn't mean it's not fun. They have to make it fun enough that you want to keep coming back to it. So it's finding the fun in a way that's also going to keep them in business and keep them getting paid.
See, there's different ways to do free to play, and there's the exploitive one that EA's doing with this and other companies do, and then there's ones that like Valve does with Team Fortress 2 and Dota 2, which I think will be around for years to come because it respects the audience and it grows with the audience, and it's not pay to win and it's not pay to wait, but it's just you can give them money to change the experience in some way for yourself.
You say
that
exploitive.
way's fine. Is it exploitive?
It's not fun to me. Those games are not that enjoyable to me, but you don't have to, like, the thing is you don't have to pay to play. They're made so that if you want to spend a few minutes and then put it down, that's fine. If you want to keep playing for a longer period, which is what we do, which is we sit down for hours and play these games, it's not made for that, and it's made to take our money. But if you're just someone who's like, oh, I'm going to wait in line and play for a couple minutes, well, they're perfect for that.
Yeah, I don't see this sustainable long term, I guess. I don't see people like so happy to be shelling out like for the next and the next and the next game down the line. I don't know if this is the audience is going to be like, man, I already spent $50 on this game. Why do I want to spend this other one where it's nickel and diming me?
Well, because it's free. You don't have, the majority of people don't have to pay for it. They're like the same
reason. The trouble
reason
though, is when you do play it for free, the investment of time is ridiculous. I mean, these are games where you have to schedule your day to keep interacting with it. And the trouble is every game is like that now. Every game is turning into this free-to-wait system. That is not healthy. That is not a market that's going to keep succeeding. That cannot last. And we really need the free-to-play stuff shaking up. We can't have these unimaginative hacks. That's what they are, making things like Dungeon Keeper mobile. We really need more stuff like Loadout, which released, I believe, this week or last week, which is a free-to-play game that hit Steam, which trades on actual audience goodwill. Who'd have thought it? Actually building loyalty from customers by giving them a great game and a great experience, and then offering them ways to pay to support the game. Loadout is just this fantastic free-to-play game, and when things like that exist, when things like Blacklight Retribution exist, there's no excuse for anyone with even a tiny shred of integrity, in my mind, to throw in this unimaginative, lazy, contrived, fabricated system of we won't give you even the tiny sliver of interactivity we've delivered unless you give us money.
Plus, you're talking about a business model and a game design model that punishes you for wanting to play. If you want to play for longer than 2 minutes at a day, you have to shell out money. Like, that's not going to bring back audience over and over if it's punishing you. But there is an
audience for that.
Like, but it discourages you from playing.
It's not. We are not the audience.
No, but you're saying we're not the audience because we like to play an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. I'm saying that the average audience probably wants to play more than 2 minutes. Like that is a reasonable expectation for games, and I think people are gonna be burned out with this. Like, I can't play this game that I want to play.
Even the people who are like, I'm not a gamer, and like they're the people who pick up games like Farmville, like, oh, I'm not a gamer, but I'll sit and play Farmville on Facebook as long as I can, and then switch over to my other free-to-play game, which is, I'll wait. Like, that's what I do while I wait, is I just switch between these different games.
That's
but
what
I'm
I was
not a
going to
gamer.
bring up. People, that might be silly to us because we think of it, how are you getting anything out of 2 minutes? But these are probably people also that have, 5 or 6 or 7 different apps that they scroll through. They do their dungeon keeper thing for the day, and then they're done. And now they go over and do something else, and then they go and do something else. And the people that are maybe more like us are the ones, dropping some money because they want to have more extended periods of time.
Loadout and League of Legends and Team Fortress 2 are games that are made for us. Those are the kind of free-to-play experiences that I want to reward them by paying them money, because that's what I love.
I think my problem with it is my problem with it is that it's sort of, it really doesn't respect that audience regardless of what it is or whether they buy it or not or whether they're playing it or not. Like, I just feel like they deserve better, and in a way they're being exploited because they don't know there's better for them out there.
Well, that's like being mad at McDonald's for making cheap, crappy food. Like, well, yeah, there's better food out there. You pay a little bit more money up front. You can get like a really good hamburger.
But you can also pay nothing to get better games, or you can pay just a little bit to get better games. It's not, it's not as though there still
But they're
aren't
not
good
experiences
games
those
that are
people
99
want.
cents.
Yeah, I mean, right, exactly. Those are different kinds of games. I mean, some people just want the socially connected, like pester your friends quality of something like Farmville.
Like, my mom is not going to go play Team Fortress 2. She's not going to start up a Dota.
So you don't
character.
think that people who like Farmville would like Harvest Moon?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, even if you're talking about things that are short, I play Wordament every day. Do you know what I never have to do when I play Wordament is pay money, and that's what I'm saying. You can still give people a quality experience and still make it profitable and still make it.
But the problem is they want to maximize profits, and when you're trying to maximize it, there are things you have to do, unfortunately.
But there is the long-term
sucks.
loss of goodwill. I think of somebody like Mythic. To me, Mythic stands for Dark Age of Camelot, and Mythic stands for Warhammer Online.
No, you're
and that
talking
kind of
about
thing.
a different company. You're talking about a company that wasn't owned by EA.
I think they were.
They were
owned
bought for
by-
EA to help with Knights of the Old Republic MMO.
Right. No,
So
I know that.
and the company you're talking about doesn't exist. You can't actually talk about them
That's
in that
true.
light.
But the
That's
kind of
true.
dungeon keeper that we would want is the kind of thing that would have to be kickstarted. It's like Double Fine making a point-and-click adventure.
It wouldn't
No
have
one-
to be kickstarted.
I mean, that kind of idea where they're going to have to go crowdfunding is what I mean when it just like
Anyone
general
could make
Kickstarter.
that game. What are you talking about?
No one's gonna put no publisher was gonna give Double Fine money to make a point-and-click adventure game in this day and age. But they proved that there are fans out there who want to pay for it, and I'm sure there are fans out there who want a honest-to-god dungeon keeper game. But a publisher like EA does not see the same kind of profit.
I do
for it.
not think you have to. I mean, you're talking about a company. I mean, Ubisoft makes Child of Light. Like, companies can do this stuff, and they can actually make money from it too.
Well,
EA
the trouble is you get a company that wants to make money, and then you get a company that wants to make all of the money. You get a company that will say, like, we're not interested in this game unless we can do one sequel a year and annualize this thing for the next decade. The guys that they're not interested in just making a bit of profit. If they can't have it all, they won't want any of it, which is why some companies won't buy a single game and let it be a single game. And then we got companies like Bethesda who will put out Dishonored.
Well, we should probably move on, I think, from this particular subject because I say we should. But I think we should also move on to another. There's another mobile game that people have been
Kevin.
talking about.
This is all you care about.
I know.
Speaking
All
of
I care about is mobile.
Yeah,
games.
speaking of offering a good experience without requiring people to
it
to pay.
It sounds absolutely brilliant, this thing. And what's funny
Well.
is that the last podcast actually mentioned this game as part of the quiz where I read off game names and asked you to tell me whether I made them up or whether it was an actual mobile game. I didn't realize that this game was then going to be in the news 2 weeks later. So, does anybody know what other mobile game people have been talking about
Are
ad
we
nauseum?
talking about Flappy Bird?
Yes, Flappy Bird.
So I actually haven't played this. I saw it as a free download, and everyone's been talking about it. I watched a video of it, and I feel like I've gotten it.
Yeah. I played Pew Pew, the game that came out before like 2011 is basically the same game, and they kind of ripped it off.
So basically, it's just you tap on a screen to make your little bird fly through pipes that look like they came from Mario. The more pipes you pass through, the higher your score.
That's it.
There are massive hitboxes, so it's really easy to die.
Yeah, it's supposed to be extremely difficult. I haven't played it either.
It's simple and difficult.
Right, simple and difficult. Yeah.
It sounds terrible.
It-
So
well,
how is it that
It
a
sounds
game
perfect
like
for
this,
a mobile game.
It's not terrible. Peter and I spent 2 minutes yesterday competing, and I kicked his butt.
right,
and so therefore it's not
I mean,
terrible?
Well, no, I'm just
I
saying
think
like
that
it's fine.
I think there is an appeal in a game that's like extremely difficult. So you die, quickly, and then you can quickly or immediately just start again and try to do a little bit better than you did last time.
Super Meat Boy.
Sure,
The
or
reason this was in headlines.
Cannibals maybe in a way.
or Angry Birds or lots of
Nah,
The
well,
Angry Birds isn't like
Birds
that
is-
at all.
So
Well,
Angry
my,
Birds.
my point being that these are
like-
games that are not so much as like mastering them so much as if you repeat it long enough, some good things might happen.
No, this
That's
is a
kind of what
well,
it
I think
seems to me.
this is much
Flappy
more.
Bird is all skill.
I think this is much more a game of mastery than something like Angry Birds.
Which
I
is
mean,
a CF of nonsense.
If you're looking for a good comparison, I'd say, I mean, it's obviously nowhere near as good at it as it, but I would say maybe Super Hexagon.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's that play, get your ass kicked, and jump right back into it kind of thing.
and
Right.
compare high scores with your friends, and
Yeah.
don't exploit the consumer.
So what? So I don't know if you were going to talk about this, Kevin, but I saw a story online about how some people, or there's some speculation that maybe Flappy Bird rose to prominence because there were bots that were like writing reviews of the game and kind of downloading it.
Robots can do that?
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
Because like there were
Whoa.
all these reviews that were really similar in terms of using language or phrases like, well, there goes my life, or I wish I hadn't downloaded this game. That
Maybe
sort of thing.
they all read Kathy. The old comic. Ack.
Oh,
Mondays.
Kathy.
I love some of the quotes that have come up though. I mean, there are these great quotes from user reviews of Flappy Bird.
Mm-hmm.
I like some of that. It makes it. Trust me, I know. Play it or you may die. I have
Right.
researched flight patterns.
What the heck?
It does cure cancer.
I've left my family of 10 to truly be at peace, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there, and it's so hard to tell what's trolling and what's like, because it all more or less reads the same thing, reads the same way,
So-
whether
Well, yeah, and that's
it's
why.
sincere or trolly.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about this game?
So it was making like $50,000 a day.
Okay, so it's super successful. It doesn't seem to, it's not a game that's it's not a game that's using the formula of like copying some other big hit on the App Store, like it's not an Angry Birds clone. I guess it gets its revenue from ads, right? In-game ads. So there's no in-game purchases of any kind, and it's like just this one guy in Vietnam created it, and so just the fact that it's achieved the level of success that it has is.
This is going to have a very steep fall off. I think this is going to be something like
Sure.
what was that OMG pop game? The draw.
Oh
something?
yeah, draw something.
something.
Yeah.
Where as soon as Zynga bought it, like no, we're done.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
The
I don't know.
reaction to it's been incredible, though. I think that's really where the big stories come from, is as well as obviously making 50 grand a day. The allegations, of course, of the stolen art.
I mean,
It's,
yeah,
it's
so
weird because
obviously stole it.
It's almost the fact that it's a story that makes it a story in and of itself. It's a very meta thing that way. But here, this is interesting
Wait,
because,
what?
of
I
course,
didn't follow that at all. But
we
carry
can.
on.
No, what I mean is the fact that this game, that in certain ways, is very similar, not necessarily in how it plays, but very similar in terms of how a lot of apps are and the way they, they seem to pilfer art or, have very simple, possibly broken gameplay systems and still manage to be profitable. But I'm sort of interested in the stolen art bit in particular, because Kotaku did a story about this, and obviously the green pipes are meant to remind us of Super Mario
Well,
Brothers.
they have the same shape and dimension.
They have the same shape and color and dimension.
And by
whatnot. But
remind
if
us,
were
you
to-
mean
if
they
you
were
to-
taken.
Right. Well, no, I don't see. The thing is, I
I think
see
they were
it as a
changed
ripoff, but
just
not as
enough.
stolen.
Yeah.
To
if you-
avoid a lawsuit.
If you
Just
put them
enough.
next to each other, they actually have different dimensions.
No, they
and-
don't. They
Yes,
have the
they
same
do.
shape and dimension.
No, they don't.
Mario could not fit in these Flappy Bird pipes.
No,
Measured.
the Flappy Bird ones.
I've seen them next to each other.
I'm looking at it right now. The Flappy Bird
No, they are
ones
slightly different.
Clearly wider. The proportions of the top part of the pipe and the bottom part are different. The way that reflections are
The reflections are
drawn on are different. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's not clearly a ripoff. It's clearly meant to look like a Mario
it's
pipe,
an-
but it's not
an homage.
stolen art per se, in my opinion. But Kotaku is certainly of the opinion, or at least Jason Schreier at Kotaku is certainly of the opinion that it is more than just homage or more
He's
than just ripoff.
furious
It's
at it.
actually stolen.
He's so angry at it.
He's very angry.
I was tweeting last night. He was like, "This is your regular reminder that they stole this."
He even
but
points out
it's
that Flappy
fascinating.
Bird looks like Cheep from Super Mario Brothers 3. And even when I really, really look, I'm not necessarily seeing.
It's not on the level of like the guys that
Well,
ripped
actually, I
off
guess I
Ridiculous
do.
Fishing and made the clone. That,
Yeah, it's not Limbo of the Lost or anything.
Right.
But I mean, it is blatantly unoriginal and
Oh,
clearly
sure.
designed to be that stuff.
Oh, sure. But
Yeah.
it's not quite the theft, I guess, that some people are proposing it to be. And I'm not saying that it's right necessarily, but I'm also not saying that it's unusual in this particular space.
not terribly offensive.
Yes. That's
Yeah, it's just there's so much about it. It's hard to tell whether people are angry at it just because it's popular and making that amount of money, or whether it is legitimately awful and sleazy. And there's so much evidence for both sides as
Oh,
well. I
both.
don't know
I mean,
what to think about it.
we're
I
at the
tried playing
stage
it. It's
where
all right.
It doesn't matter how good a Call of Duty game is going to be. There's going to be a large contingent of people prepared to hate it. So, certainly when something becomes big and popular and makes a lot of money, there are always going to be people that hate it for that alone. But I think there's more to Flappy Bird than just that. But Tom, how are you?
Okay, what's up?
Yeah. So maybe I have you, because I didn't prepare a part for Justin when I wrote this up. So maybe I'll have you and Justin share this bit, because you were there in person.
I don't want to share with Tom.
Okay. Well, it's not that kind of sharing. So the DICE Awards. So Justin, why don't you first of all share what DICE is and who it represents and so on and so forth. Give us a rundown.
I can never remember what DICE stands for. It's like discover, innovate, create, entertain. So it is a developer focused conference, very like a really small GDC, like a very small game developers conference where developers come together and they talk about cool game development stuff, and then at the end they have their own award ceremony presented by the Academy of Arts and Interactive Sciences or something like that, something very similar to that. And it's generally considered a much higher standard, kind of more like our Oscars, I guess, in terms of really trying to honor guys who made great games for the year and people who've made a great contribution to games overall. They gave a Pioneer Award to Eugene Jarvis. Some of the Rockstar devs were inducted into the Hall of Fame, which they usually don't take awards, but Sam Hauser, Dan Hauser, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they accepted on behalf of all of Rockstar because they don't like to be singled out.
Leslie Benzies? Is that
Yes,
who?
Leslie
Yeah.
Benzies. The award show itself, the reason that most people know about it is because of the award show. And this year they had Freddie Wong and Felicia Day as the hosts, who are very charming and really great hosts. Much more fun. I do like Geoff Keighley and whatever the other guy's name is. Jeff Keighley.
Jeff.
Joffrey?
Joffrey Keighley. They do a really great job, but it's hard to match the charisma of Felicia Day and Freddie Wong. They're very funny, very amiable on stage. They did run into some problems. If you guys were watching at home, you could watch this live streamed. They forgot to turn off their mics when they walked off stage, and so you could just hear them kind of whispering back and forth and trying to take off their mics from their clothing over some of the awards announcements. And then they didn't have someone to actually read the initial announcements on, so someone just off stage was just yelling like, and next up is the award for blah, blah, blah. But other than that, it was really smooth.
That's actually really funny.
There were a couple of awards that did stand out, and I saw that, Kevin, you were tweeting about this as well.
I was pretty, I actually had some strong feelings about one of the winners.
The Innovation Award.
Yeah, the Innovation Award. Well, let's run down the entire, well, not the entire list, but let's look at some highlights. There was clearly a winner.
Oh, yeah.
Last night, the winner of Game of the Year and the winner of many of
awards.
the other awards.
I do like it when they do this instead. Like, instead of some award shows and some outlets, and I'm sure that GameSpot, like all of the big outlets do this sometimes as well, where you don't necessarily give the Game of the Year award to the same game that wins all of the other genre categories,
right.
Because you want to spread out the love. You want to make sure that everyone gets as much recognition as possible. So
we don't do that, by the way.
Yeah, that can also be really awkward when Action Game of the Year is one thing and another action game is the winner.
Yes,
the
that always annoys me.
What was it like at the VGX this year? Assassin's Creed 4 beat GTA 5 in Best Action Adventure category,
but GTA 5 won overall.
I thought The Last of Us won
GTA
overall.
5? No.
What?
At VGX?
Poor VGX.
But anyway, so they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. If GTA 5 is a better game, then
how is it not the better
how
action
is it not
game?
the better action adventure game?
And just getting into the fact that they still try to make things into genres, which only really works for racing and fighting. Sports. Like once you go into action, like I think there was one where they pitted BioShock Infinite and Resogun were in the same category, which doesn't make any sense at all.
I know. Why was BioShock nominated for anything?
Well, there's a bunch of weirdness in terms of how we categorize games in general, and one is, for example, adventure game. What is an adventure game? To me, an adventure game means something different than The Last of Us. To me, an adventure game means The Longest Journey, or it means Double Fine. King's Quest and that kind of thing.
Broken Age,
and so on and so forth. So it's always strange to me to think, an adventure, but what does that even mean, adventure? I mean, that applies to almost every game we play at this stage.
Or role playing. Like technically, almost all games are role playing.
Well,
games
that's getting.
In some way.
Now we're getting into funny
I've had this
categories.
conversation every year for 5 years.
I know.
What's a downloadable game at this stage? That's almost everything. How do you
downloadable exclusive is what it is, Kevin?
Right, it's just silly. Why are we categorizing games based on the manner of their distribution?
So, did anyone else think it was weird that Diablo 3 won Best RPG, even though it came out
weird.
2 years ago? Came out in 2012, but it won Best RPG.
Also, World of Tanks.
Why did Diablo win?
Because it came out on consoles, I guess.
Jim Sterling, why is Last of Us innovative?
Tom's asking a lot of the tough questions.
Didn't we get sidetracked? Weren't you going to talk about why, like the innovation award?
Well, yeah, I did want to talk about that.
I asked Jim Sterling what the innovation
let's ask Jim. I mean, because I know how I feel. I have no idea how Jim feels about it.
I think it really innovates by taking, say, the idea of the toad from the Mario Brothers series and seeing what would happen if that tried to eat your face.
Yeah. Closer to the toad from the movie Mario Brothers, though.
Yeah, fairly. But no, I found that funny. I'm not the kind of person who gets bent up out of shape about awards, because it's like some other people liked a game that I didn't like as much. Let's get angry. I don't quite understand that, but I did feel like it said quite a few things about how the quote-unquote AAA industry is run and their attitudes towards things and their ideas of what innovation is.
Did we even,
that gets innovation awards just because.
Did we say for people watching like what won this
The
award?
Last of Us won the award for innovation.
Okay.
Yeah, because I obviously disagree, but I'm trying to like construct some kind of a, well, this is what's innovative about it, but I can't really come up with anything because it doesn't feel remarkably different, and the way that the storytelling is in the game is not different from other like action cutscene games.
This came up a lot when I was because I was being mildly bitchy on Twitter about it this morning. Because obviously I don't feel like The Last of Us is innovative. Certainly not when you put it up against things like Papers, Please and the Stanley Parable or even Red Shirt or things like that. It just strikes me as though they're much.
They had Tearaway on there as well, didn't they?
Yeah, Tearaway was on that list. how is Tearaway not more innovative than,
I don't know.
And it really does. I put out a call on Twitter, people would argue with me, well, yes, it's innovative. And then I would ask for, tell me, I really want to know, how is it that for you this is innovative? And nobody actually told me something that was innovative. It was all about the notion of the quality of the game, and
I think that's the problem. Is the word innovative has been taken to mean just good now.
Right.
Innovative is a positive word in the lexicon of gamers. Therefore, innovative game of the year just means good game, what we liked, which is a problem in and of itself. I think it's just nonsensical to have an award for innovation, as if innovation on its own, for its own sake, is a laudable thing. To me, if you want to be praised for being innovative, you've still got to couple that with a good game. Just innovative on its own. I mean, you could argue Ride to Hell Retribution innovated in several ways. Doesn't mean it was necessarily good or worth any kind of money.
Right.
The Last of Us did have some really innovative puzzles, though, where you had to go into the water and get the raft and have Ellie ride on it.
Oh my God.
And then push her across. And then do that again 5 more times.
I guess
that was pretty innovative.
And Jim touched on this. It just kind of because the people who vote on this are developers, aren't they?
Well, they're members of the Academy.
And it kind of it just makes me scared that the people who are making games are recognizing that as innovative. It's kind of just where's this industry going if the people who are most influential in what we play can't really recognize what innovation is?
It was a little strange. Last of Us is a really great game. I really enjoyed Last of Us.
Yeah.
But when you watched DICE, if you watched any of the panels, they actually had a huge emphasis on indie guys. The guy that did Ridiculous Fishing, Ramil, I'm just not even going to embarrass myself by saying his name. They got the Ridiculous Fishing guys. They had the Tearaway guys came up. They gave presentations, and it felt like there was a real focus on people who are doing things different. The guy that does Palmer Luckey, the guy that does Oculus Rift, and they had them talk and give presentations, and it felt like there was an emphasis on new innovative ideas and different things. But then to go to the awards show where basically the AAA guys who made a really awesome game that people loved is the only thing that won, up against after having kind of honored all of these other actually innovative and new different ideas.
But that was how all the awards kind of played out. It just kept going to the big games, didn't it? Yeah.
So for the most part, there's not anything here that isn't anything you've never heard of, or that you've never, that you wouldn't buy if you walked into a GameStop right now.
Yeah, that was the disappointing thing, because it's there are so many great games in so many different facets, and the developers only really recognize the AAA big budget, highly marketed stuff, and it's what? Because you go to them, as you said, you go to them as the prestigious source of no, this is really what's good. We can look beyond what's force fed down our throat, but they can't. That's the thing that's really sad. They are as stuck as anyone on all the biggest games, and it's that's depressing to me.
I don't know. I mean, I think of the Oscars, and I often feel the Academy, maybe the IAS, is that, or whatever the acronym is for the DICE. Anyway,
the AI
it's a kind of the video game parallel of the Motion Picture Academy.
Yeah, it's very similar.
And I often feel the Academy Awards reward films that, are good films, but are also not the most daring, not the most kind of experimental or risky films out there. The films that maybe get really praised on the festival circuit or by the New York Film Critics Circle or this or that, those groups might recognize the truly risky, daring films, but the Academy's going to play it safer and reward, the King's Speech.
That's because it's a political thing. That's why, really. It's a lot of political stuff behind the scenes.
So I don't know if kind of taking a step back and looking at this as some sort of portent of doom and gloom that, the people making games don't, I don't look at the Oscars and say, people making movies don't really know what good films are, because there's still enough good films that come out every year. I mean, the kind of films that appeal to me, the really, not non-mainstream kind of challenging films, that it's the Oscars I can kind of disregard.
Well, I guess for me, this year's, having Last of Us win felt like Gravity winning at the Oscars, because Gravity is excellent,
right?
And Last of Us is excellent. But every year at the DICE Awards, we get the AAA game du jour winning, where it's not like we get the blockbuster movies ever even recognized in the Oscars. I mean, this year was an exception because Gravity was actually like a great movie, but it's you never recognize Transformers, but we recognize the equivalent of Transformers in our awards, and that's the bad thing.
Wait, I'm sorry.
It's not like modern Call of Duty didn't get an award. Battlefield 4 was up for an award, but they also didn't win.
I mean, The Last of Us, you could.
Last of Us is an exception because it is a blockbuster game that is actually worthy of praise.
Exactly.
I'm saying every other year, they're still giving the award to the biggest blockbuster game of the day, but that is rarely a game that's worthy of celebration.
Then maybe this is a step in the right direction. Maybe this is a sign of encouragement. Okay, this year was The Last of Us. And maybe
there's a chance.
So maybe
there's a chance.
Didn't Journey win last year?
Journey did win last year.
Journey did win.
But I that's why I wanted to sort of make a, kind of draw a line between, I think there's, I think on where Caro's coming from, I think that they're, just like they're Oscar bait movies, they aren't necessarily the most successful of the year, but for whatever reason, they have all of those individual qualities that are the most appealing. And sometimes that might mean a big movie like Gravity, but other times that might mean something that's a little bit, that's somewhat less successful, but still hits all those right buttons because of the way it's filmed, because of the, you have something like, what was that? Like something like Mr. Holland's Opus to me is like the example of like an Oscar bait movie. It's neither the most or Dances with Wolves or something like that. Like these are movies that aren't necessarily the most popular movies of the year, nor are they the most critically acclaimed of the year, but they hit those certain criteria. And that's what I think, kind of makes Journey and The Last of Us sort of in that same boat, because I think we've now reached the stage where we have the equivalent in gaming, where we sort of have Oscar bait games in the same sense. And to me, The Last of Us is a game like that. But also Journey is a game like that. Or The Walking Dead is also a game like that to me, where, and I'm not saying anything against the quality, because I think the quality of all of those games is great. I'm just saying that I think in some ways they're relatively calculated games that make praising them easy because they're fairly safe to praise.
That's a very good point.
And we've said over and over, like 2013 just had a ridiculous amount of really, really good games. Like you could cut out my top 10, and the next 10 games on my list would be a good top 10 list in any other year.
Which is why the homogeny kind of bums me out, because Last of Us is great. Last of Us is worthy of awards, but it's like there were 25 like excellent games last year, and just seeing like everyone just give it to Last of Us makes me think like, what about everything else?
But at least
we can all agree Ridiculous Fishing was robbed, though, right?
Oh yeah.
Was it nominated for game?
It lost mobile to Plants vs Zombies 2.
Oh my God, that's depressing.
Which was a little surprising.
Yeah.
Just before Plants vs Zombies 2 updated to add in worse free-to-play mechanics.
Yes.
So a few things outside of The Last of Us that were awarded for things last night include Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons for downloadable. Again, a category that sort of stymies me at this stage. What else is on here?
Well, it's basically like the best indie hit if the Oscars had that. Like, I don't know.
Pretty much. FIFA for sports, Forza for driving, Injustice: Gods Among Us for fighting.
Dive Kick was totally robbed.
Yeah, maybe. BioShock, I don't care about the genre, so...
Wow.
BioShock Infinite for action, and regardless of how, like, and I know this room is filled with people that don't like BioShock
Jim Sterling
Infinite.
loves it though, so we'll be polite.
I've apologized. How many more times do I have to apologize for sinning against the world for liking BioShock?
You do not have to apologize.
You don't have to
All
apologize
of these
to me or
wrong.
Justin. Justin and I are in your camp. Caro and Tom have much stronger negative feelings.
But we respect everybody usually in most things.
About this one,
my
you generally
my
don't
feelings
respect
about
us.
BioShock Infinite are run too deep. I feel like it's so problematic and so racist that I have a hard time kind of accepting the idea
That's
that
a different argument.
Yeah, but
we have a hard. This is a conversation we've had so many times.
I know. I don't want to, but I'm just saying,
belabor
like,
it.
I don't know.
It's Friday night. I can't.
I know. It's
know,
fine.
right?
It's fine. I don't want to open the whole can of worms.
No.
I really don't. I
I
don't.
gotta get home and sit on my couch and eat some pizza and just
Go,
like
no, that's
take
cool.
off my pants.
I don't. We don't need to get into it.
But my bringing it up though does point out more the other idiosyncrasy with BioShock Infinite being called Best Action Game, whereas Game of the Year goes to The Last of Us.
Well,
but
Last
The Last
of
of
Us
Us is
adventure.
considered an adventure,
Yeah.
which is different
action and adventure are totally separate. How can
Which
you
is
not
funny
see the
because I
difference?
call The Last of Us a survival horror. These genre bleeding things, it's getting too difficult. This is why when I do awards, I just do 5 games of the year. That's it. Just 5 games of the year. And I include mobile, downloadable, portable, AAA, whatever. It's just
we did the same thing for our official awards this last time, and
I could see someone saying like an action game is a game in which you're continually action, like Call of Duty's action because it's nonstop action, right?
So anything in real time, basically.
But like, yeah,
What's
no,
the
but
difference
like
between action
but
and
both
say,
like
a shooter, where those things are often separated.
yeah, but Last of Us and BioShock both have like slower pacing, and then there's the shooting part. So it seems like they would both fit into the same like weird category. So I'm not really sure.
Action is a terrible cat. There is no way to
weird.
define it. It's not weird. It's just a dumb.
It's
like,
a game that's not turn-based.
That's like saying there's fiction and nonfiction books, and here's the best fiction book. Okay, I would agree.
So
Yeah, that was weird.
I kind of feel like things have gotten heavy. This isn't actually the end of the news
It's
that I
my
want to get
fault.
back to.
I'm
but
sorry. I apologize.
No, it's fine. Let's take a quick break. And
Okay.
I'm gonna do the only quiz because I don't even have an audio quiz this week, believe it or not. The first time we haven't had an audio quiz in ages, but I do have a video quiz, and I have Benito over there is getting ready so that Jim can participate in this, so that he can see. So what's gonna happen is it's the box art quiz. Yay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass around my laptop, and when we get to Jim's turn, Benito is going to put the screen we're talking about that's for his turn.
Turn this off because they're gonna see this right here.
Okay.
This TV right here.
Yeah.
You gotta turn that off.
Oh, I have to do
Also,
what?
don't
Yeah,
turn your
turn
voice
it
and
off.
talk ever, Kevin, because
Turn
that's a
this
bad
TV
thing.
off. Oh yeah, I gotta turn this TV off.
Because
So
they're gonna see.
Okay.
there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
So we're
let
taking
me-
a break now?
No, not a real break. We're just gonna do
Oh.
the quiz.
Okay.
We're just gonna do the quiz.
I thought we were taking a break.
We're live.
It's a quiz break.
It's a quiz break. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go from. It'll be, I guess, in this order: Caro, Tom, Justin, Jim, and I'm gonna pass around my laptop. And
Okay.
your job, Jim hasn't done this before, I think the rest of you have. What your
I've not done
job
this.
is, you're going to see box art, and this is all
You'll get the-
related
you'll
to
get the
EA.
idea real
Since we had so much EA love today, the through line is that these are all games that have been published by Electronic Arts, and your job is to look at the box art and describe the box art through its art alone, without saying the name of the characters or without saying the name of the game, and so on. You can only use the depiction of the art on the front,
Right.
to see if somebody else, and whoever can guess it first.
Okay, so
is
who?
the one.
Oh, so it's
So I'm
just
gonna
to
start with-
everyone.
it's
We're
to
not
everyone,
to anyone.
right.
Okay.
So Caro
Yeah.
starts.
Okay.
Kevin, you keep speaking not into the microphone.
Oh, do I?
Yes.
So, but now I have a problem.
Do you need
Benito.
to lose your headphones?
Yeah, you're just not gonna be able to speak for
I'm
a little
not gonna
while.
be able to hear Jim. That's the problem.
That's
So okay.
But
That
you
is
know what
no
these
loss.
images are.
That's not.
I do know what the images are
'Cause you
I just
put it
won't be able to
together.
hear Jim. All right. So Caro, you
Okay.
start. You
All
have
right.
the image.
Yes.
And when you pass it to Tom, should only press arrow to the right.
Okay.
Move to the next one. We've done this before, so
Okay. Should I go
yeah.
ahead?
Go
and get started?
ahead and describe the box art.
All right. So there's a dude with a
Battlefield.
gun. There are like all.
that narrows it down.
There are tons of shells coming out of the gun. Like the gun is just firing rapidly.
is it black?
No. The dude's boot is raised so that we can see the the bottom.
Bulletstorm?
It is Bulletstorm. Jim got
Good
it.
job.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
That was
Yeah.
that was published by EA. Bulletstorm.
It was an EA Partners game, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Oh, so is this just from any time ever, not from
Yes,
last
it's
year?
from any
Okay.
time,
I was
any
thinking
EA
last year.
game that's ever been published.
So there's a woman who is staring at the camera. She
Mirror's
has.
That's so. It's so easy. The woman like that narrows it down.
How
It's
many
like,
games
how
have a
many
woman on the cover?
EA published games that
You
even
got
have
like
a woman
3
on the cover.
choices.
So easy.
Last of Us.
EA, but EA games.
Oh.
Sure.
All right. What the hell? All right, so there's like this Neo kind of dude, and he's crouched down with this massive gun that you would never be holding one-handed, but it looks like a mix of an AR, and he has a ninja mask on, and he's crouched, and he has like a black trench coat, and there's black and white and red text.
Syndicate?
Yes, Syndicate. Wow.
Oh, Dad must have been
God,
Jim.
I completely forgot
Whoa.
about that game. Yeah.
This is
Took
excellent.
me a
I'm
moment.
sorry if
When
I'm
you
talking
said
over
black
Jim,
and
I
red,
can't hear
that,
anything right
yeah.
now.
It's kind of a generic cover
It really is. I mean, it's a pretty nice drawing
of a ninja dude,
of a ninja
Neo.
dude with a gun.
And now we're at Jim.
This is not. Now
So
we're
next
going to
for Jim?
Caro. 'Cause
Okay.
I'm not participating.
Okay, so
I could participate if you want me
Is
to.
Jim seeing the same on the
Jim,
Caro?
I
can
think the
show him
next
one.
one. No,
I
no,
can
no.
show
It's
him
Jim's turn.
Wait, so
It's,
what's she looking
give
at?
it back. Oh, you
I'm
can
s-
keep it.
I'm
Just
still
keep
looking
that.
at Syndicate.
Okay.
I won't.
Sorry, Jim. It's your turn.
Coming at you, Jim.
Okay, so
Oh, I think
am I
his-
getting sent a link or
His
what?
chat's late though, so he's gonna like because he's.
Oh, you're holding it to the camera.
Yeah, you're watching the
Okay,
video
yeah,
stream.
there's gonna be a-
it's gonna be a
a
little
delay
late.
on
All right.
Okay.
It's up right now. It's just like you give it a couple of seconds.
Okay.
Well, this is.
I can't hear him, so somebody
This
needs
is
to make
compelling
sure that I'm not
radio.
talking over him.
Nobody's talking.
Okay, here we go.
You can't hear him?
No, because I had to unplug my.
We have
headphones
got
because
some very boring army men
I'm top around.
Battlefield.
surrounded by a lot of brown, with their guns
Shit
being generic.
Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor
Warfighter.
Warfighter.
There you go.
All right, that Justin
So
got
Justin
We
gets
got
it
the
because
same
it
thing.
was
All
shit.
right.
It's shit fighter.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. That game wasn't actually shit. It just was. Well, it was
Terrible.
kind of a little.
Yeah.
it. Okay.
But I overrated that game.
Yes.
What did you give it?
Oh,
I gave it a 6.
Overrated.
I overrated it.
all right.
All right.
Here we go. Okay, so there's a figure standing in the foreground. You can't see. He's in some sort of suit that covers him like head to toe.
Crisis.
Right, oh, okay.
He's his helmet.
It's not
Crisis
Crisis?
3? Crisis 2?
His helmet has like 3 kind of blue glowing.
Dead Space.
Oh, Dead Space 2. Dead
3.
Space 3.
Okay, Dead Space 3. Yes.
God. Man, remember Dead Space 3 came out and no one cared?
Oh God.
I was excited.
that was-
before
I
it came
was
out.
excited because I loved the first. I loved the first one. I liked the second, and then I never even played the third.
Wasn't Dead Space 3 Arthur Gies's game of the year or one of his? Like, he gave that game like a 9.5.
I don't know.
I think it
Well,
was
Dead
Game of the
Space 3
Year.
was still a great game.
So
it was
there's
held
definitely
back
a thing.
by awful
All right,
design used to fabricate, again, sort of a free-to-play mechanic in it. But it was still a great game. It's just tragic because it could have been utterly brilliant, and it just wasn't.
It could have been really good. I even with the multiplayer mechanic, like I was really excited to play it, and then it just kind of ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another one. Tom is gonna describe one next.
So this
Okay.
one's got a dude wearing a purple jacket on the cover, and he's pointing a gun at the screen, and the gun has a skeleton on the front of it with red eyes.
Shadows of the Damned.
Yeah, see, Carol rolls her eyes because she just assumes it's a dumb gun game.
Well,
but it turns
no,
out
it's
that
just
an awesome
It's
gun
just so
game.
funny how
Oh,
like
that's not. Shadows of the Damned was a dumb game.
Oh, well,
it was just brilliantly
it
done.
reveled.
really- yeah.
It reveled in being dumb.
Yes, there you go. I loved that game. That was
no.
the last game I bought from EA, if I'm not mistaken.
I did not think that was an EA game.
Yeah, that
I forget
and,
what game we're talking about.
Shadows of the Damned.
Oh yeah.
That
Tom
and
loved
Alice
that game.
Madness Returns were both EA partner games before they kind of realized that, that those games aren't going to sell.
All right, so the next one is kind of an artsy cover. You have a white background and the silhouette of 3 men walking towards you, kind of suits, nicely dressed, but
Reservoir Dogs.
they're holding guns, kind of like Reservoir Dogs kind of looking guys. And then within their silhouettes is a scene of bloody red violence. People are firing into an
my
open
God.
car.
Mafia?
Very, very close.
That was a 2K game. though.
And there's the title for the game is in the corner, and it has a guy holding marionette strings.
Okay,
The
so
Godfather.
Yes, everyone said Godfather at the same time.
Yes.
I'll take that.
It's the
Godfather,
Godfather
2
2.
specifically.
Okay.
Oh yeah, unless it's
So I think
got.
it's Jim's turn now.
Yes, it is Jim's turn. So EA makes a lot of games where people shoot each other. This is what we're
No,
learning.
I mean there are.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not
I
even
can't
EA.
see the
like-
image yet, but I'm gonna start. There's a gun.
yeah.
And on the and it's a dude. It's a white dude holding a gun.
These are silhouetted
gun
dudes.
with a jacket.
Yes.
It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Well, that's how EA rolls.
Can somebody take it away from here so Jim's taken care of?
Jim, you see it yet? Should be.
Yes, I do.
there you go.
Oh,
There
now
you go.
this is a difficult one to describe. This one actually isn't a gun, which might narrow it down.
FIFA.
But there's a fellow, like an alien type of fellow, on the front. He's got glowing orange eyes. very angular design. He hasn't got a mouth. He's got a kind of metal mouth plate
Mass
on
Effect?
him. No, he's got Wolverine-style claws, at least in one hand, with orange fire coming out of it, and he's slashing that towards the camera. He's stood behind the title, and behind him are lots of other sort of alien creatures, like that look like they're in some sort of test facility or laboratory.
They're not gonna get this
That really, I think it's very blue.
Why-
The cover is
Jim,
very blue and orange.
Why don't you tell them what platform it's exclusively on? Maybe that'll
Okay,
help a little.
it's exclusive to the PC.
That doesn't help at all. What is this game?
Think about it. EA
Should we-
PC exclusive.
Should we know this?
It
It's-
is. It was a spin-off.
Darkspore?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, God, I
Oh.
would never have gotten that.
That was what the cover looked like? That's
I didn't-
Yeah, it had this kind of like it had.
I knew that would be
it's
the
trying to
hardest
bridge
one.
the gap
Can I see
between
the cover?
cutesy and gritty.
like Pokemon.
I mean, if you showed me that cover without the name, I would still have had no idea. I forgot that game existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
And
you
then
could
one
easily
last
think
one.
that
Caro
was
gets the last
Skylanders or
one.
something.
Because there's no PC game box art anymore. That's why.
Oh, this is okay. All right, this is here we go. There's a dude. He's instead of a gun, he is holding a very large sort of bladed scythe. It looks kind of like a scythe.
Knights of the Old Republic.
He's wearing
The Old
metallic
Republic.
kind of armor on his head, and he's
Army
got,
of Tutu.
in the
Fuse.
background.
Fuse.
God, this is tough. I haven't actually played this game.
Plants vs. Zombies.
So his chest has like a red kind of cross.
Oh, Dante's Inferno.
Dante's
Oh, I was
Inferno,
about
yes.
to. Yeah. I
Wow,
was gonna-
Jim, your memory for video game box art is frighteningly good.
Your
I'm
memory
such a
for
big fan
shitty
of
games.
EA as well.
Understood.
I don't
Yeah,
think
you.
Dante's Inferno was shitty. I think we're done now. By the way,
That's the
that was
last
the
one.
last one.
Yeah.
It's not a very good God of War ripoff.
I think history
No, I
was a
wouldn't
bit
say that game
unkind
was
to
good, but I wouldn't
Dante's
call it
Inferno.
necessarily
It was
shitty.
okay.
Well, at least not the final third of it.
It's just it was just so uninspired and so I don't know.
Why do you think history was unkind, Jim?
I don't know, like, it gets a reputation as being just this awful game, mostly because, I mean, it totally wasn't that original in concept. It was very much a kind of God of War, Me Too game. But it was decent at what it did. I just don't think it was as dreadful as people think it was. A lot of people talk about it now looking back, and I think it would behoove people to just give it another fair shake, just another try. It was
pass.
alright. It
It was
wasn't
the
offensive.
final third. I can hear Jim again, which is nice. It was the final third that got me. Once it got to the point where it ran out of ideas and didn't know what to do, and so it was just one, combat room after another, is when it really started to drag for me. Like, it got through a lot of the game, and my biggest problem wasn't really a problem so much as its sound design was so effective that it was truly hellish. But then once it stopped being interesting and I was just stuck on the same platforms for long periods of time at a time, just fighting dudes over and over and over again, that's when I started to...
Yeah,
That devil at the end had a really big penis, though.
He really did.
He did.
There is not enough Wang in games, and let me tell you, that
Really?
game had
I think there's a
Wang.
lot of Wang in games.
Oh my God.
At least, in a
kind of games are
metaphorical
you playing?
sense.
Yo, in a metaphorical sense, yes, there's plenty of
Metaphorically,
phallic.
it's all Wang. It's just penis all the time.
Yeah, but
That's why there's so many guns. Just spraying cum everywhere.
Thank you.
Wow. Coming to you live from GameSpot headquarters.
That's the preview clip now.
Yeah, that's a thing. But I mean, in this case, obviously not metaphorical. It's not often that you see, and you even get a little glimpse of Dante's in the final cutscenes.
It's
there,
not as
so-
impressive, though. It's
clearly
hard to
not.
go from Lucifer's to his. Like, Satan hangs dong.
Let's move on.
Yeah, Kevin brings it up.
I'm
Like,
so
the God of War
sorry.
formula isn't actually that interesting, I guess. Even though I love some of the games, it's like, when you see these lesser God of War games,
Yeah.
like
They
Dante's Inferno and then God of War Ascension and the second PSP game, it's like
the really good God of War games are really good because of how well they execute on
Yeah.
the formula. There's nothing inherently interesting about.
But
that.
then you play Dante's Inferno or Ascension, and you're like,
well, it's the
Ascension
same thing.
was really
to me
boring
with like gear. Well, with things like Gears of War clones or Call of Duty clones. Sometimes you don't necessarily see how well those games execute what they do until you see how not so well the imitators do it. So let's talk about some other stuff before we say goodbye to everybody out here. Caro.
Yeah, hi, Kevin.
One thing that I wanted to talk about that we never really got to was this. So there's this composer.
Oh, yeah.
And he has done a couple of game scores.
So, right, he's done...
including
Onimusha and some...
the
one of
genre
the
no game?
Yeah, and it was there was one of the Resident Evil games, like the DualShock edition.
Carol liked that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he done some Capcom work. And so anyway, yeah, but he was known as the
Japanese Beethoven.
Japanese Beethoven because he was known to be deaf.
And that's all that made Beethoven interesting.
Well, no, but I mean, if I understand
the...
how if you have someone composing music and they're deaf, it's kind of
it's
impressive and amazing, and you kind of
just like every one-armed drummer is compared to that dude with the
all the
Def Leppard. There you go.
So, but it came out recently that the composer's compositions for the past 10 years have been ghostwritten. So one of his compositions was going to be used as music for a Japanese figure skater at the Sochi Olympics, and I guess the ghostwriter felt like he couldn't live with it if this came out after the fact and it reflected poorly on the athlete. So he came forward and said that the composer A hasn't composed his stuff for the past 10 years. B, he's not even deaf. He's not even actually deaf.
Not even a little deaf?
Well,
we're all a little deaf.
I don't know
older.
if he's not hard of hearing. I don't know.
Well,
but
there are definitely wavelengths of sound that we do not hear, so I guess everybody's a little deaf.
Yeah, so kind of, an interesting story there.
It is an interesting... And of course, as a music guy, I had a little bit of a vested interest in this one, just because, I don't know, it just seems so...
Yeah, I mean, apparently the composer had told the ghostwriter that he would commit suicide if any of the truth came out about this. So, I think that put a lot of psychological and emotional pressure on the ghostwriter to kind of keep this secret.
What an incredible manipulation and a lie to lie about this for so long and then to hold that kind of I don't know. That's just
and then
awful.
to not follow through with it.
Man!
Wow, Peter Brown told me that your mind was a scary place.
Yeah, he was stuck with me when we went to CES together.
And
hats off to the guy, though. Like, no one else in the history of the human race will be able to claim to have been called the Japanese Beethoven and the Japanese Milli Vanilli in a single lifetime.
Not bad.
Yeah. What else? Carol, I also want to bring up the Elder Scrolls Online real quick. It was something else that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Now, Jim, I don't know if you even play MMOs or have any interest whatsoever in either Elder Scrolls or the online version. What say you? Are you an MMO guy?
Big fan of the Elder Scrolls. Occasional player of MMOs. Not gotten around to Elder Scrolls Online yet. I've played some of the beta stuff. It was all right. It was an MMO. My problem with MMOs is they think it's a genre rather than a medium, and therefore they're all the same. And last time I played Elder Scrolls Online, it was just another MMO. I don't know if that's changed. I would hope so. I need to get into it at some point.
That's a really interesting point of view that maybe we'll get further into in another episode. But thinking of the thought of MMOs as a medium as opposed to a genre is really interesting to me. Anyway. But Carol, you and I played it.
Yeah, I mean, for me...
So from an interesting idea to Elder Scrolls Online.
So, I don't know. I mean, I enjoy the Elder Scrolls games a lot. I feel like a lot of MMOs have a kind of cartoonish or whimsical quality that I start to find kind of tiresome, and I appreciate that the Elder Scrolls Online is this more kind of serious world. It takes its lore very, very seriously, and just the whole Elder Scrolls approach to like high fantasy, appeals to me. The way that it looks. But as I was playing it, and I play as an archer, just like I always do when I play Elder Scrolls games, and when I play something like Skyrim, there's so much kind of satisfaction in sneaking and in like trying to land those headshots and so on and so forth. And there's none of that in Elder Scrolls Online, and so after a little while, I started wondering, why would I play this game instead of Skyrim? I mean, because I didn't feel drawn to like playing with other players or any of the kind of inherently like MMO or online social aspects of the game,
which is really the only reason that you play.
And it's like, well, I like this world. This world sort of appeals to me more than the worlds of a lot of other MMOs, but even that aspect of it is done better in say Skyrim. So why, I at the end of the day, I was like, well, I didn't have a clear idea of why I would play Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, it's a weird place for me because I love MMOs.
Mm-hmm.
It's we all sort of have the our genres in the office. I mean, we're all capable of playing lots of genres. I think we all have like that one genre that we sort of is ours, and MMOs are my genre. And I love Elder Scrolls. As you know, I love Skyrim, even though Dark Souls was the better RPG that came out that year. But I still love Skyrim.
Sure.
And you'd think then that an Elder Scrolls Online would be sort of a dream game for me because it takes things that I love and smooshes them together. But every time I'd heard Bethesda talk about it, and any time I'd played the game before, I was entirely unimpressed. The combat and still is clunky, and a reminder that Bethesda has probably the worst animation department in all of AAA gaming. And it just, like, the combat wasn't fun, for number one. But I hadn't really done a whole lot much in terms of playing the game before. You can't really get an idea even after playing an hour of whether something's gonna be meaningful or not.
Sure.
And at first I was really drawn in over the beta weekend because it was Elder Scrolls, and the music was Elder Scrolls, and the architecture was Elder Scrolls, and for once I could play an Elder Scrolls game in third person and not want to bash my head on the sidewalk.
I like third person.
Yeah, I play Morrow in third person.
Yeah.
There's a difference between feeling like you're traveling along the ground and that you're floating above the ground.
Whatever.
And
I like to see my character.
your legs just happen to move.
I play Fallout. I play Elder Scrolls. I play those games third person. I switch to first person sometimes, but I like them third person.
But this, I mean, at least they animated this in a way that I didn't feel like a total goof, from the third person perspective. But it was very Elder Scrolls. But that's part of the problem with the game too, is that by being so Elder Scrolls, and putting in an online environment, a lot of what makes Elder Scrolls is kind of ripped away. There was none of that. The beginning of Skyrim, the first 10 minutes, and there was a dragon attacking.
Well, to be fair, this is in the beta. It says like there's text explaining the opening sequence, and it says like placeholder text, and that there will be a whole opening
like
kind of. It's not going to involve a dragon, but there is actually going to be that sequence where like you are in a row with these other prisoners, and I don't want to maybe spoil if people haven't played the beta, but like
spoil the text.
Like there is going to be a whole intro cinematic thing,
right? But that's just a cinematic. I mean,
the
playable tutorial.
I think it's
in Skyrim that was playable. You were,
we're judging a beta.
I mean, it'll probably be playable in the sense that you can like look around and
my impression that it was just an opening cinematic. That was just placeholder art.
I imagine that you'll see your character there and everything.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
But even taken outside of that, in Oblivion, you have that moment where you emerge from the dungeon and look out, and it's like, oh my god, the possibilities. And in Skyrim, you go out and you see like a mammoth,
spawn in the air and fall 30 feet to land on the ground.
But still, you have that idea that there's something out there,
right?
And you're gonna somehow become a part of this. But it doesn't, it's not necessarily existing for your benefit.
Well, you still get that because now you will see a wolf And then your mind will race with the possibilities of the other 9 wolves you will kill to make an exclamation mark appear above someone's head.
That is the thing. I mean, it's not as though Skyrim didn't have wolves, but it didn't just have wolves. It had...
Well, and it didn't have those kinds of rudimentary quests of, like, go here and do, kill...
So it really does have those.
Well, I mean, there was one quest.
Livers.
Well, it doesn't have those.
For me,
rinse, wash, and repeat.
Yeah, for me, it was more like
MMOs have.
it was more like kill pirates around here until you recover such and such item for this ship or whatever. So
I think those are worse when you don't even know when you're going to get it. It's like it's just a random drop.
Well, I think I got it on the first one, so I don't know if the drop rate's just like 100% or if I just lucked out or whatever. But
yeah, I got kind of lucky because the first time I did the ship thing was at E3, and then you have to go and see if there are bandits hiding inside crates on ships in this one place. And when I played it at E3, literally it was like the last places I looked that the bandits came out. This time, I didn't have to go through every crate before I had completed the quest. And they do they try to give it context. It's fully voice acted, and when you go into a conversation
and they pull out like Jennifer Hale like right off the bat, right? I mean, there's like I think the second NPC I talked to, I'm like, oh, okay, that's Jennifer Hale.
That's smart.
I guess so.
She's good at the voicings.
Yeah,
she is. And I mean, and it was at first I was drawn in because it was so Elder Scrolls and the atmosphere was right, but then I just got stuck in the fact that it's an MMO, but it's not full MMO. It's very UI.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well,
by
what
that?
I mean
full
is
MMO.
it's very. I mean, there's not a lot of UI. They minimize the UI as much as possible to keep you invested. And so when you see other players, you might not even realize that it's another player at first because they're not labeled as such and so on and so
It
forth.
sounds like a good thing.
But
though.
it can be a good thing.
Well, it's also an option.
But there's also this aspect of it that because of the way the game is put together and because of its Elder Scrolls atmosphere, there was nothing at all in making me feel encouraged to do anything with anyone else.
And
the chat. I mean, now granted,
This old-fashioned idea of MMOs suggests they should be like just heavily scripted, heavily structured, unchanging worlds. The guy who gives you the quest to kill the wolves will always be stood there, and there will always be half a dozen people crowded around him because they're all doing the same quest. Really, when you want to do Elder Scrolls Online, it should be a lot more spontaneous, and that's when I think games like Rust and DayZ are starting to show themselves as real torchbearers for MMOs. These games that do have just fully player-created experiences, fully emergent experiences, rather than something... just these old-fashioned MMOs that, there's a lot of people around you, but you're all doing the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't feel like an open world. It feels like a static playpen.
So how do you draw in the people that want that lore and that story and that want to have voice actors who are telling a really cool story? Because that's why they love RPGs like Elder Scrolls.
And that's
single-player game.
I mean, and that's where I'm sort of stuck is that the Elder Scrolls part feels like it suffers because can no longer just, I'm not pickpocketing random merchants. I'm not, I can't just kill a townsperson and then say drag their body into their house and then fill their house with bones. And
so you're saying the problem with this is the same problem with every other MMO.
Yeah, and I think that this game in particular just puts forward the fact that there are things about Elder Scrolls that makes Elder Scrolls special to a lot of the people that play it, whether it be the fact that I have that kind of freedom or whether with Caro she likes having the ability in combat to
is this game making the argument that MMOs as they're currently designed are fundamentally flawed? Is that because it's highlighting it and magnifying it more than the average game could because we expect it?
I mean, I don't know that MMOs are inherently, I guess if you want that experience, fine, but I just feel like Elder Scrolls and traditional MMO mechanics are a really uncomfortable fit. Like I don't.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Here's
where
what
I'm
you
at with
do.
it, too.
You get a section of Tamriel. You design it, you put in all the little cities and towns, you put in the fields, put in monsters and stuff. Everything else, empty. Throw the people in there. Some of them are going to take over shops and become shopkeepers. Some of them will go do normal adventure stuff. Let the players write their own lore for that part of Tamriel. Introduce like little events and stuff for them. I guarantee you people will do it. In that old Star Wars MMO they used to have way back in the day, a friend of mine became a world famous boy band in it. That's the kind of stuff that just happens if you give everyone the sandbox and say, have fun with it, write your own story.
Yep.
I guarantee you'd have a living, breathing section of Tamriel that could have its own history in the same way we've seen with Rust. And yes, some of it will be like Rust's Penis Brothers, I grant you, but there will also just be a lot of fascinating stuff that happens in there that will stick to the spirit of a more living, breathing Tamriel.
Right.
You look confused when he said Rust Penis Brothers. Did you not see that video?
No, I have not seen the video. So.
Can you describe that, Jim?
There are gentlemen in Rust who will force you to take your trousers off, as far as I can tell.
That's basically it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so they just pants you.
Yeah,
Or they kill you.
there's
they
all
kill
sorts
you.
of fascinating stuff in Rust, but that's the kind of stuff I see as being the future of MMOs, not this heavily scripted
It's taking off your
babysitting.
pants.
Not all penises.
Some
Although obviously
vaginas.
there'll be a lot because
There's been a lot of
unfortunately, that's
genitalia
people.
talk in this podcast. Well, it does, and to be fair, like I think that with EverQuest Next, SOE is at least trying for that kind of thing, for being bringing back the sandbox into vogue. Maybe not as far as say Eve takes it nowadays, but at least taking it so far as you're making history as the game continues forward, and it's more about what you do as players than it is what.
That seems like a much smarter thing to do, and it'd probably be easier instead of writing lore, all pages and pages of lore. You just like let people make their own. I mean,
Yeah,
it just
but
it just
not
seems like
easier.
that's
You got to create a system that allows people to do that.
Yeah,
That's not
but
easier.
see, the thing is, I think EQ doesn't have the burden of necessarily having to have done it that way because they started as an MMO. I think that with Elder Scrolls, it would have made a lot more sense for them to have been the ones that do what EQ is doing now, because that would have made sense in their world to have it be more emergent rather than sort of this weird in-between of sandbox and theme park, which is where the game sits now. I don't think it necessarily highlights problems with other MMOs. I simply think
so you
that
don't
it's
have
not,
you don't crave that kind of like freedom and the ability to personalize with your own stamp in other MMOs.
Oh no, I do crave that, and but I also think that we're getting there. But it's more that I don't think that because a lot of MMOs they're made to be MMOs, and so there are other things that don't necessarily make it so clear or so vivid what some of those limits are. Whereas something like Elder Scrolls Online makes it so easy to see what those limits are because they're trying so hard to make it Elder Scrolls, but there are just so many elements of Elder Scrolls that just don't work in the way we're used to them, and then you just see that so clearly.
Like being able to fill up a person's house with useless shit.
Right. Now, somebody who has never played Oblivion or Skyrim or Morrowind and is new to the Elder Scrolls series coming for the first time may feel differently about it because they don't know, but I can't unknow what I already know about Elder Scrolls. And maybe, I don't know if that's my problem or the game's problem. I don't know if a newcomer would feel the same way. I'd be interested to know if somebody's never played Elder Scrolls before, what they feel when they play ESO. Somebody that's maybe played MMOs but not played Elder Scrolls. I'd be really interested to hear.
And I've
what
always
they think.
felt like Elder Scrolls feels like an MMO, like a single player MMO kind of world.
Yeah. But we gotta come to an
wrap
end.
this up.
We gotta wrap this thing here up. And I guess the first thing to do is I have to name a winner because, of course, I've been keeping points and scores this whole time. Jim Sterling, you're the winner of this week's GameSpot gameplay, so congratulations.
Yay!
Hey, your prize for winning is so there's a game that came out today called Jazz Punk.
Have you heard of it, Jim Sterling? Have you heard of this game?
I don't pay attention to the small fry. I'm more interested in everything EA does.
So Jim, you happen to have provided some voice acting for Jazz Punk, and your prize for winning, and don't do this yet, but your prize for winning is to recite some of the lines that you had to speak for the game for us here. If you don't mind sharing with us your innate talent for lending voiceover.
For speaking.
Yes, your innate talent for speaking.
Okay.
And before you do that, though, let me thank everybody here. Let me thank Caro Pettit for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Tom McShay.
Sure. This was
again.
brought to you, this podcast, by Diet Barks Root Beer. If you want to support our podcast, get in touch with me.
Don't buy Barks because they're not.
That can's been here for 3 weeks.
Has it really?
Yeah.
Somebody throw the damn thing away.
No, it's perfectly good.
It's still
sugar water.
it's good. It's
Oh,
good.
you're right.
It says it's good right
on it.
there on the thing.
Also, it appears to be unopened.
It's
How long
good.
does root beer last?
Forever.
How long does
Okay.
root? It's a sealed can.
Yeah, but don't they have dates on them? I mean, eventually it's
but-
going
I
to
don't
be bad,
know.
right? The aluminum's going to seep
Anyway.
out. And
Justin,
I'm
this is your
sorry,
first- this is your
aluminium
first.
since Jim's here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Anytime you want to up the amount of genitalia talk, I'm always happy to.
I'm
to
so
come on.
glad that you could bring some genteel nature to the
Oh my God.
My
the
gentlemanly
show
nature.
today. And Benito's over there. Thank you, Benito, for making this happen.
Woo!
So thank you for that. And thanks to everybody out there. So you should subscribe to us if you don't already. Obviously, we're glad to be video now. We're glad to be live and all of that stuff. But if you're out there and you enjoy us, you should subscribe through a podcast player. Search for us as GameSpot Gameplay on iTunes. You can do it through your RSS. Whatever podcast player you use, we're on Stitcher and all those other places. So just subscribe, because when you do that, then good things happen in the office, and I can keep making this podcast happen. So
If you'd give us 5 stars, go ahead and rate us. If you'd give us 1 to 4 stars,
Send an email to
yeah,
an email.
yeah. Send
It's on
me an
Game.
email.
If you subscribe through GameSpot, you can directly give us 5 stars. Or if you try 1
Yeah.
through 4,
Yeah.
we'll talk with you.
That's right.
And try to make the
Hey.
podcast better
Yeah.
for you.
but you can email me if you have any ideas of little quizzes we can play and so on and so forth. Send me an email at kevinv@gamespot.com, and we'll do our best to address the things that you have to say or want us to talk about. And obviously, we're all on Twitter as well. So, Carol, you're Carolyn Michelle.
Carolyn Michelle.
Tom McShay is Tom McShay. Justin Haywald is.
Justin
Haywald.
And I'm the weird one in the bunch. I'm Fiddle Cub.
Yeah.
So follow us all. And
Jim Sterling is Jim Sterling.
Jim Sterling is Jim
Yes,
Sterling.
indeed.
Yes. Jim Sterling, why don't you take us away by giving us a chance to understand the talent you brought to jazz punk?
Okay. I also got to bring my fatty jowls down my neck. That's how Lewis told me to do it. Hold on a second. Right. So I do 2 characters in jazz punk. One's called Xavier Esperanto. The other one's called Carmen Miranda. So the first one is, you see him in the game. He's a rather large fellow standing by an elevator, and he goes,
Pardon me, my good Samaritan. I've taken notice for your propensity for performing various, shall we say, sundry favours for the inhabitants of these most tropical of premises.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
hurt my fucking neck doing that. And the other one is Carmen Miranda, who you find her in a fruit hat, and she jumps out of it and goes, "Ah! After 10,000 years, I'm free! It's time to conquer Earth!"
Huh.
Wow. I never would have seen Carmen Miranda as the conquering type, but
Her voice has gone down.
Ostensibly
Quality.
Rita Repulsa from the Power Rangers. And I'll be in a few other games this year, kind of embarking on a voice acting sort of kick. I'll be in Laura Kate's You Are the Reason.
Oh, nice.
I'll be playing one of the villains in that. And Ashton Reyes, who did Starbound, he's asked me to do something in future, and there will be quite a big one that I don't think I can talk about it yet, but there'll be that as well.
Former
Basically,
GameSpot
all the
writer.
stuff that Troy Baker is too good to do,
Yeah.
I'm doing for free.
Nice. Are you doing the commentary for Madden this year? That'd be interesting.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
Sure.
sure, why not?
yeah, yeah, the football, brilliant.
That's your thing. So, Jim, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure. We'll have you back sometime soon, I'm sure. And thank you to everybody else. And I guess we're going to say goodbye. Benito, why don't you shut us down, and we'll see everybody next time on GameSpot Gameplay.
There.